Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. For those of you who are here in India, it's 3 o'clock here in India. In the Americas, oh, you're just in deep sleep still, but getting up early to not miss a special event. And then, of course, in Europe, perfect timing. So welcome to the fifth day of Miracle. And we have a very, very, very special guest, old friend of Tushita's, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, and I think all of you know her. So there is no new need to introduce her because we only have 1 hour and we don't want to waste it. We want as much advice as possible. Jetsunma, can I just, I do it quick. Sashi Perki Juchi Metok Tram Rirab Lingzini de Gyempadi Sange Zindu Rite Uwai Drokun Namdak Zingla Tripa Shok. Perfect, pure holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamyayatayami. Thank you so much, dear Jitsuma, for accepting our requests. For everybody, Jitsuma officially doesn't teach anymore, so we are so especially honored and delighted that Jitsuma accepted our request on this very special occasion of the Days of Miracles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kunpen, for inviting us.
Thank you. So it's a question and answers. So we collected a few questions. Oh, shall we do some more prayers or shall we shoot?
No, shoot.
Shoot. Okay. Jetsunma mentioned in an article that the Dharma should be like yeast in a heavy dough of our everyday existence, making our days lighter and more digestible. Jetsunma, could you please expand on that a little bit and what is the meaning of Dharma?
What's the meaning of Dharma? Oh my goodness. Well, what I meant was that nowadays, especially, more and more people who wish to dedicate their lives to the Dharma are no longer monks and nuns. They are lay people who have jobs, professions, who have family, who have social commitments. And so they do not have 24 hours to devote to formal meditation practice. And yet, despite the heavy load of their everyday life, they want to progress in the Dharma and be able to transform their hearts and minds. And so they're asking more and more, the traditional idea was to think that ordinary daily life with your family, with your workplace, was an obstacle to pure practice. And that pure practice was when you were able to go into retreat and just do nothing but formal meditations and practices. That was Dharma, or reading books, or going to Dharma centers, going to circumambulating temples and stupas. That is Dharma. And washing dishes and doing cooking and dealing with your kids or dealing with your partner or going out for the evening or even watching television and movies, all that is just the works of Mara, basically. And the sooner you can get out of that, the better. So that doesn't work anymore. And it's not even true. The point is not so much changing our external activities as bringing everything that we do onto the path and making our daily life our Dharma activity. I think this is really, really important. One thing is that there are so many qualities needed on the path, the paramita, for which merely being in retreat doesn't give us any practice, like generosity, ethics, patience, just being kind, being compassionate. Many qualities of the heart need other people, and even sometimes need difficult other people, so that we can practice those qualities such as patience and forbearance and tolerance and understanding and compassion, for which we need somebody to practice on. So again, the practice of Lojong, of mind training, is very, very helpful in this modern day and age. And we can be very grateful to Atisha for emphasizing it when he came in the 11th century. So also along with cultivating these qualities like patience and generosity and just being kind, along with that, the awareness, any action which we do, I mean, I know it for myself, it's that any action which we do which seems tedious is not tedious if we give it our full attention and make it our practice. At that time, chopping vegetables, sweeping floors. I mean, in many Buddhist schools that has always been understood, like in Zen and also in the Theravada, that even the most menial actions like cleaning and sweeping and washing up and cooking, if we do it with relaxed attention, is a perfect Dharma practice. We don't have to think it's a waste. It's not a waste of time. In fact, it's nothing less than if you're sitting on your cushion reciting your mantras or looking at the mind. It's the same thing. And this is why I think it's very important when the audiences are mainly now lay people, and among that, women. I mean, how wonderful that the Dharma gives such a perfect opportunity to be cultivated and practiced, even in the very midst of a very busy daily life. And so that's why I said it's like when you have making bread, you have the dough, which is heavy and indigestible. And so you mix it with just a little yeast. We don't throw the dough away, that's the point. We need the dough to make the bread. But we just need to mix it with some yeast so that it all rises up and becomes very light and nourishing once we cook it. So I think this really, in this day and age, very, very important that people don't feel frustrated or deprived, because they are already highly intelligent, they can read the books, they can watch online all these wonderful teachings which are now given, and at the same time, they can completely transform their everyday interactions with their family, with their colleagues, with their neighbors, and with themselves through the application of the Dharma.
So sorry, Jetsunma. Thank you so much. Yes, wonderful. So, Jetsunma, nowadays, so if everything can be Dharma practice, so nowadays we have all these mobiles and WhatsApp and yeah, all these things that distract us. And often we see them, yeah, we see them as pleasurable and as distractions. Could we transform those things maybe as well? Because they take a lot of time from everybody, especially young people that grow up with them. they don't know any different anymore than being on
Yeah.
social media. So what is your advice? Because it is quite addictive, let's say like that.
It's totally addictive.
Yeah.
And as a result, some years ago, when I found the nuns coming back from their holidays with these smartphones, which their families had kindly given them, I somehow recognized this was really a problem. So at that time, because I'm in the nunnery, so I can do what I like, I said, okay, we have a new rule. During the week, you give your phones to the disciplinarian, and you can have them back on a Sunday. So on Sunday, you can call up your family, but during the week, your phones will stay with the disciplinarian. And everybody accepted that, and that's what they do. So they were protected. I mean, the only people who have phones around here are, well, yes, Philippa here, but also, the disciplinarian, the person who runs the guest house and so forth. But they have made a very sincere promise that they will not use it for their own uses. They will only use it when they need to do it to undertake their various tasks. So if we need to have any information, we can call up the disciplinarian, the children, and she has a phone. But she will not use it just to call her friends or for her family. And I mean, they promise they won't, and I'm sure they don't. So it is a problem. And of course, you will have heard in Australia now, they are stopping young people under the age of 16. They're making a law that people under the age of 16 are not allowed to use these devices. Of course, the problem has been, how are you going to carry that out? Because mostly they are inside in their homes, and for the family, very difficult to say, look, now it's illegal for you to use your phone or online devices. But the idea really was just to warn people that this is really very detrimental to the mental health of especially young people. And it's an addiction, as you say. So, I mean, here we have a retreat center for people, women coming from outside. And one of the rules is that they have to leave all their electrical device, give it to the person, the nun there, and not use it in retreat. Because again, I just call up just to find out if so-and-so is okay, and then that leads to the next thing, and then that leads to, that looks interesting. Well, I'll just look and see maybe I should go in here. What was it Mingyur Rinpoche said? I'll just look it up so that I get inspired, and we're gone again. We are very weak creatures, really. And I don't know what the solution is, honestly, because especially after lockdown, when everything had to be online, it really, people became so completely habituated, that the children especially, and they can't imagine what life would be like without, their appliance. Even the lamas are saying, in some of the monastic colleges, they're teaching. They can see that, they're playing around with their phones under the table. And their attention is not on what's being told. So it's a big problem, really. There's no magical solution. I think it helps if people do retreats and they are deprived of their machines. Then they have withdrawal symptoms. And then after that, they begin to see, actually, it feels nice to have a mind which is free from endlessly being caught up in your devices. And that might give them the opportunity to be more scrupulous with how much they actually need it and how much they actually do use it. What do you think?
I don't know. It's really difficult, yeah? Yes, it's very tempting, no? Yes. Um, I have no answer to that one. I mean, we can't just always take them away, right? It's very interesting with Australia. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Quite, wow, it's quite outrageous to say.
Yeah, because they can't
Everybody,
really implement it. But
yes,
I think it was a warning there.
yes,
Like this, it's that serious that now we have to make it illegal.
right, yeah. I think they even have trouble, at school, right?
Yeah,
Taking,
yeah,
the mobile phones away, the kids go crazy, right? Yeah, it's
yeah,
very addictive.
yeah. And because also the content and the whole, how fast it's all moving.
Yes.
I mean, they say that nowadays the average child in America has an attention span of 4 seconds.
Scary.
Scary, because
Yes.
that's the future.
Yes. So, Jitsuma, we talked a little bit before this teaching about artificial intelligence, right? How the artificial intelligence is making up quicker articles and speeches and theses and whatever it could be than a human being could ever imagine, in a very beautiful way, very quick. And so here in the office, this this comes from Raisa, my coworker. She says all her friends use now AI, and tell her what's wrong with you not using it, and she feels a little bit like, but what about our human potential? What about our creativity? And she feels a bit like the alien not using it. So, what are your views on AI, because it is the future, definitely.
Well, I think, yes, we cannot know because this has never ever happened before, that we would invent an entity which makes us redundant because it's in every way more intelligent and it doesn't get temperamental, doesn't get tired, doesn't, have any of the emotional storms which human beings have. It doesn't get stressed. And so it's on one level superior to anything we can come up with. But on the other hand, well, we are too, but AIs are especially the result of their programming. So who is programming them? And what are they putting in that program, right? I mean, it does not have consciousness. And therefore, on one level, it can never really genuinely empathize with the problems that it is asked to solve by human beings, because it is not a human being. It is not a sentient being. And so we don't know who. I mean, many people are making these AIs now all over the world, and we don't know what they're putting into that. Different people will be putting in different things and different emphases. And, they themselves have no choice. They are programmed. So that in itself is quite scary. And as we mentioned before, a number of people have told me how now they choose AIs as their therapist because they feel that the AI understands them more than a human therapist could do, which is very ironical. But as we said, the other point is that if you have an AI as a therapist, they're on call at any time. So whenever you feel like you need somebody to upload with, or just to sympathize with, or to give you a bit of an uplift, you can call them 2:00 in the morning, no problem. And they themselves don't have their own emotional baggage as a human therapist would have. So in some ways it might seem more beneficial, more clear, because the machine will just be reflecting back at you what you need to hear in accordance with the way the machine's been programmed. Mm-hmm. So the other problem is that everybody's going to lose their job. And it's already happening. I mean, you go to an airport now, and most of the procedure is underdone by machines. Yeah. That's where the humans, right? And the humans who used to do that, what are they doing now? You know, and people without jobs, especially men, so many men identify themselves with their career. Well, you're soon going to find that most of their careers, including IT experts, are going to be taken over by these AIs who are so much more efficient. So it's in another few years, it's happening so quickly. It's going to be a very different world. And then for education, also for the children. What kind of education will they need to live in this other kind of world? Especially if most of the jobs have been taken over by the AI. Mm-hmm. And we're shown continually that our intelligence is inferior to these machines. You know, they win all the games they play, chess and everything. They win, they can't lose, because they're so much more capable on one level, but they have no heart in the sense of feelings. They don't have feelings. They might mimic the feelings, but they can't really feel because they have no consciousness. It's very, very weird. Nothing like this has ever happened to us before. And we always assumed, you know, in the science fiction that it would be aliens coming from outside of us instead of something which we ourselves are producing.
Right.
I'm glad I'm on the way out.
Jetsunma, please.
I wouldn't want to be 18. And many children feel this, you know, that there's no hope. Mm-hmm. What's the future for them? That's the other side of it. Right. We've made ourselves irrelevant.
Yes. Yeah, that leads to the fake news and all these things, which I think really is promoting like suspicion, isn't it? You know, one can't trust anything anymore. I mean, like in the good old times, maybe the neighbors gossiped and you weren't really sure if it's true or not, right? People tell, you know, try to destroy your reputation or just kind of whatever. But now it's so much on purpose, and it's so well done that one can't distinguish anymore what is true, what is false, and really messing with the mind, isn't it?
I mean, as Philippe was just saying, you know, there was, explain.
There was a video of Jetsunma which was speaking in Chinese, and it was Jetsunma's voice, Jetsunma's face synchronized with the audio, her mouth moving in as a Chinese speaker, and it was just promoting some book that had launched that had nothing to do with Jetsunma or with anything.
So, I mean, they can do that quite easily nowadays. So, as you say, fake news, who knows what is what?
Yeah.
And so often it's done to harm.
Right.
Deliberately, which is very sad and frightening for the future as they get more and more skilled. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is only the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't even imagine. Yep. Very true.
So please, everybody, please recognize the nature of the mind. our nature of the mind is very different from an AI's nature. So we have to see what is uniquely human, uniquely sentient.
So if you're redundant, yes, Jetsunma,
I
please.
was just thinking, on the good side, now they are recognizing in the West that animals are sentient. In other words, animals have consciousness. I mean, obviously in Asia for millennia, we've known that. You know, the first thing we say is, you know, may all beings be well and happy, meaning all beings, sentient beings, right? Sentient meaning they have consciousness. And so it's always been known in Asia that all beings are conscious and that we are all very interconnected. But in the West, it was always that, you know, animals didn't really have consciousness and feelings and things like that, even though anybody who had a dog or cat knew that couldn't be true. But now it's become the law that animals are conscious beings, and therefore we cannot just do anything we want with them, because like us, they share the same kind of consciousness, no matter what they look like, which is good. I mean, that's going on the other side towards more sentience, away from the AI, which is doing away with sentience.
Right. Yeah. So Jitsuma, that leads me to, you know, many people, especially in the last months, maybe especially, feel like that the world is just driven by bullies and insincerity. I mean, it's always like that, but more or less, but especially, and people feel overwhelmed, helpless, and blaming the outside, of course, right? It's all about who's wrong outside. But then, of course, there is that part that we have a little dictator also inside of us, isn't it? Yeah, we sometimes denying that, and that is just kind of mirroring outside. Could Jitsuma talk a little bit about that, maybe? Yeah, I
Well,
don't.
you know, of course, we all know the world is in a really very challenging place right now. And it could get worse. We don't know. Might get better. But I always feel it's very important to think, like, you know, we talk a lot about material pollution, right? With you go to Delhi and you know the planet's very polluted, and if you go outside and you take a photo, you can see you know, it really is a mess. But to my mind, the more important pollution beyond that is the psychic pollution, the mental pollution of all the fear, paranoia, hatred, and so forth, which is stirred up constantly, especially by the media. I mean, yes, these awful things are happening, but the response to it is hatred and fear. Then if we could see that pollution, you would see how thick and dense it is and how important it is not to plug in to that energy, to counteract that dark energy of our fear and anger and hatred with really heartfelt love and compassion and light. We need, you know, in the darkness, we don't need more darkness. We need to bring in light. Even a candle will shine a long way in the dark. And so singly in our practice and together when we come into communities, especially into Dharma communities or churches or temples or whatever, to come together to radiate light and love and compassion for ourselves and for all those around us, and more outwardly eventually to encompass the whole wide world in light. Because just getting upset and paranoid does not help us, does not help the people around us, does not help our families, our colleagues, our neighbors, and it doesn't help the world. It doesn't help anybody. And I always say, always remember, the Buddhas are always smiling. So they know something we don't know. But the answer to that was a smile. So that's the energy we have to connect with, the energy of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and all the protectors, and to really, really pray from our heart for their love and protection, and to embody that and send it outwards to everywhere, because everywhere is in need of love and compassion at this time. So it's nice when you do your retreats, you have all the people coming together and doing loving kindness and compassion meditation. And that's exactly what we should be doing at this time. To ourselves also, very important to give love and friendship to yourself. Make yourself feel, at ease, not to create more pain inside. Doesn't help. But it is a strange world we are living in, and very strange times. And so, we have to have a bonding of people who believe in goodness. And that's nothing to do with any particular religion. That's just dealing with the ultimate nature of our mind, which fortunately is love and light and intelligence. Under it all, there it is.
I remember somebody asked the Queen, since Jetsunma is from England, what she thinks, because she had experience over 60 years being in office. So to say, Ray, kind of running, parts of the world. And she interestingly said she thinks the world is getting better. It's just because now the media is so strong highlighting negativities, and always, the bigger, the dramas are, the bigger is, the
Yeah,
more
sure.
money. That it just feels so much more like a hostile place we're living in. But there were Second World War or big wars beforehand, and but not everybody felt it that way, so immediate like we're feeling it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's true, there is so much goodness in the world. And that is never highlighted in the media. That's not interesting. The awful things are the things which they are going to blare out to everybody. And all the beauty, all the kindness, all the goodness, all the self-sacrifice, which is going on continually, everywhere, all around the world, that is ignored. And so it makes it look very out of balance. Whereas probably if you added up both sides, the dark side may appear more dramatic, but the good side is always there and continues always from the past into the future. It's always there because our true nature is good. And many people are acting on that. So you hear about all these wonderful things people do, absolutely amazing, but nobody ever hears about them. Yes, you're right, and the Queen is right too, in a way. I'm not saying things are getting better, but, there have always been war. Now it's more dramatic because their weapons are more devastating. But however far back you go into history, there's always been battles and fighting and power trips and awful things that people are doing to each other. It seems to be part of our human dilemma. It will be interesting to see how the AIs deal with this when they're in control. My AIs versus his AIs, right? I mean, I don't know. Different countries will produce different things.
Oh, what a strange world.
Crazy. It's crazy.
So, Jetsunma, when trying to generate that compassion and loving kindness with each other and seeing, the world and the state, what to do, how to deal with our still selfish tendencies? We can't deny. Should we just ignore them or suppress them or
Make friends.
yes.
Make friends. I think it's very interesting that, we all know Buddhism is especially ego bashing, right? It's always going on about self-cherishing mind and so forth, and that there is no self. But still, when you look at what the Buddha taught at the beginning as a basis, he recommended shamatha meditation, calm abiding meditation, to get the mind into a good space. You can't practice if the mind is really sick. So you have to get the mind well balanced and clear and calm and workable, usable, so that our attention is able to settle where we want to put it, right? So we can use the mind as a tool skillfully. At the same time, he taught the 4 immeasurables, or the 4 Brahma Viharas, of which the first is loving kindness and then compassion, first to ourselves. May I be well and happy. May I be peaceful and at my ease. May I be free from suffering. Because if we are not friends with ourselves and we don't encourage ourselves, then we are never really going to be at peace with others, and also we're not going to be able to walk the path towards transcending the self. I mean, if you have a limb which is broken, then you can't use that limb. And you're always thinking about it. Oh, my arm, ow, my arm, my arm, my arm. Why? Because the arm is sick. Useless but sick. So first, sorry about that. First, the arm has to heal. Once the arm is healed, we can use it to do all sorts of things, but we're not thinking about the arm. Who thinks about their arm if their arm feels okay? And it's the same with the ego. If our ego is hurting, or we're criticizing ourselves, putting ourselves down, telling ourselves we can never do it, everybody else is so much better, and me, I'm just useless, then we're always thinking me, me, me. That's why people have therapists, right? So they can sit there and talk about themselves. But when we are healthy, have a healthy sense of self, and are friends with ourselves, then we don't think about ourselves so much. Other people are more important. So in the practice, first you start with ourselves, then those we love, which is, our family, our partners, our children, our dog, wishing them well and happy. How wonderful if they could be well and happy. Then people we are not, strangers, people we're not really interested in, neighbors, people you see, they also would like to be happy. They also would like to be free from suffering. And then people that we have problems with, who have caused us trouble or that we don't like, may they be well and happy and free from suffering. And then, of course, the whole world. But we have to start from where we are, which is making friends with ourselves, so as to encourage ourselves to walk the path towards selflessness. And, if we leave that bit out because we think, oh, that sounds like self-cherishing, then we've lost a lot, because we will not be at ease with ourselves. We will criticize ourselves. Geshe Thupten Jinpa, His Holiness, his translator, he started an institute in America for teaching exactly these Brahma Viharas, these four qualities. And he was really surprised that these, very assertive, confident Americans could not give love to themselves. So then he said, okay, start by giving love to those you love. Your family, your friends, whoever you love. Just thinking how lovely it would be if they were well and happy and free from suffering. And when you get that feeling in yourself, that warmth in your heart, then turn that back and wish the same for yourself. Because we have to have a healthy sense of self to walk the path to selflessness. Otherwise, we can't do it. I mean, you meet, the great practitioners, they're very at ease with themselves. They know they've got faults. Who doesn't have faults? We all have faults. So what? We're working on that, right? Okay, so, I get angry. All right, I'll use that as my path, learning how to overcome my anger, learning how to overcome my greed, learning how to overcome my jealousy. But first, we have to have a happy sense of confidence that we can do that. When I first met the 16th Karmapa, which was back in the 1960s, I was just sitting there was a number of people there, and I was just sitting on the side. And then after a very short time, he turned to me and he said, your problem is you don't believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, who will believe in you? And that's it. We have to believe and trust in ourselves and encourage ourselves. And then everything else falls into place.
Yes, Jetsunma. Yeah, it's like a epidemic, there's low self-esteem in the West, right? I always wonder where it comes from, because with Tibetans, they seem not to have that, or at least for the younger ones, maybe.
Yeah, the younger
nowadays.
ones are having problems, but the older ones, I mean, when they first came out of Tibet, I came to India to work with the young Lamas home school in the early 60s. So they had only just come out about 4 or 5 years. And they had lost everything, of course, as we know. I mean, they had left everything behind, their families, their monasteries, their homes, their villages. Who was high now was low. They were just refugees working on the roads. And yet, they had such inner joy. And nobody could understand why or how. I mean, they knew what had happened. They'd seen people killed in front of them and their families decimated, and, the terrible time, months that it often took to get out from Tibet. I mean, they'd been through everything in the extremes, but they weren't bitter. I mean, these are ordinary people, not just high lamas. They weren't bitter, they weren't angry, they were sad. But behind that sadness was still tremendous devotion to the lamas, to the Dharma, to everything which they believed in, which made them Tibetans. And so that along with the deep sadness and grief of losing all those that they loved so much, nonetheless, there was a kind of joyful devotion there, still there, and a belief that they could go forward, which they did. I mean, the Tibetans have done extremely well in the world. And a lot of that was because they believed in themselves. And they believed in their lamas, they believed in the Dharma, and that kept them going. and saved them from despair. And they were very generous also, and they had nothing. Yeah.
Quite extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, actually. And if you saw them at that time, you would realize how really extraordinary they were. You've got to give them credit because they could have gone so much the other way, and they didn't. And of course, His Holiness emphasized again and again that it wasn't a matter of retaliation or wanting to harm the Chinese, or, you know, the Chinese were just people like everybody else, and, you know, they were just doing what they were told. And how to, you know, I'm sure many of them did do these meditations and Tonglen practices, etc., to clear away any real anger that they were feeling in their heart, and to accept it, and to accept it also that was their karma. And of course it was, because as a result, Tibetan Buddhism, you know, spread throughout the world, which it wouldn't have done if they stayed in Tibet. It's quite interesting karmically, when they came out, just at the time of the psychedelic explosion.
Right.
And everybody was high on LSD and the other, and then they came across all these Tibetan images and meditations and everything, and they just fell in love, right?
It's very true, Jetsunma. We have a hailstorm starting here. Can you hear it, Jetsunma? No. Good, good. That's good. Yeah, because, you know, also Tushita, you know, as a FPMT center, you know, with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I always tell new students a story about the hippies coming to India and then encountering these lamas and being quite intrigued by them. And then I find it so intriguing how two so different groups, the very traditional Tibetans who just came out behind the mountains, and then these very outrageous hippies, how they clicked somehow. I find that very, very intriguing.
And I think it's interesting that if this had happened in the 1940s or 50s, there would have only been academic interest. But because it happened in the 60s and 70s, then that was exactly the right time when people were coming to India to explore meditation, and as we say, getting high on all these psychedelics. And that somehow it was on some level a meeting of minds. They were looking to explore beyond the range of the normal consciousness, and here were the lamas who could tell them how to do it.
Yes.
Fascinating.
It is very fascinating how karma works, no?
Yeah, isn't it?
So Jetsunma, when we visited the nunnery, Jetsunma is the founder of DGL Nunnery, and which has been flourishing over the last 25 years, amazingly. I hope Jetsunma tells us a little bit about the nuns. And when we came to visit for the 25th anniversary last year,
That was lovely.
there were these three Tokdemas, right? Sitting. Oh, four there were, right. And of course, everybody was very intrigued, just coming out of retreat and going back into retreat, Jetsunma, was just having a little break. Yes. So there was a question about how, the reviving of this tradition of the Tokdemas, you know, can influence, you know, Buddhist traditions, the world, and also, especially also women, inspire women, of course. As Jetsunma mentioned, most of the Dharma, how to say, students we see in our centers are women. There is no doubt. Yeah, so, and then as our resident teacher just said the other day to me, often they say like, well, where are our examples? You know, I look around and there's all these male pictures and yeah, there's a Tara, but you know, is there also like somebody like a human being who's female? So I wanted to ask Jetsunma, how the Tokdemas, can inspire us, of course. I found them very inspiring. And all the nuns, of course, and their confidence. It was very enjoyable to see how they're all kind of, playing the ministers and the kings, and
In their
it was
play,
like
yes.
it was it was
Yeah.
very impressive, yeah.
Yeah.
How they were just not so self-conscious anymore, right? Like
They're
15 years ago.
compared. I mean, even the first nuns that we had 25 years or so ago, they all say, look at how we were and look at how the young nuns are now. Because the older senior nuns were, just right at the start, and they were very overwhelmed, I think, by, the monastery compared with being nuns. But now the modern generation of nuns has all these nuns as examples. I mean, the Geshe Mas and the Kenmos and now the Togden Mas. They can see these women who have been through the course and have now attained the status. Not that the status in itself is important, but the confidence to be able to reach out and help others is important. And so one of my hopes is that as the nuns graduate now, they have a 12-year study program, and then they do a 3-year retreat, that then some of them who have the inner interest could train as like counselors and also as Dharma teachers and go back to their own villages. Because the women there in the villages, they have a lot of trouble. There's big problems with alcoholism and domestic abuse. And where can a woman go? If she goes to a monk, a Lama, he will say, oh, well, this is your inferior birth as a woman, and you should practice patience and, pray hard to come back as a male next time, which is not terribly helpful. And so the nuns could do better than that, especially if they've had some training in how to be counselors. And already they have a thing where they have to stand up and give a Dharma talk to the other nuns. And so then, presumably it's quite funny because they tell stories and things, and they have to keep the nuns entertained. But it's to allow them to see they can do that, and that they have a role to play, a very important role, actually, I think, because otherwise the younger generation coming up don't know anything about Dharma, and they go to modern schools and then become bank managers or superintendents of police, and they don't know what is Dharma because it was always kept in the monasteries. And now is the time when it has to be given to the people so that they can practice, and especially the women come forward who they really want to know, but nobody really teaches them. So I think this is a role that nuns can definitely, educated, confident nuns can definitely step into that space, because there's nobody there at the moment who is doing that. Yeah, nuns have come up a long way in the last 20, 30 years.
Amazing.
Yes,
The
really.
difference, Jetsunma.
Yeah, I mean, so many nunneries now, really well run, educated, articulate nuns and practitioners. And I mean, I assume in other monasteries too, certainly in our own monastery of Tashijong, the monks and the Khenpos and the Togdens are so supportive, totally supportive, and really believe in the nun's potential. So everybody wins. It's a win-win solution. It's not like we're taking something away from somebody. Everybody is going to benefit from the rising of the nuns. And women in general, because now and more, you know, Indian women also, middle class, educated women, are seriously studying the Dharma and doing these philosophical study courses and meditation retreats and so forth. And they are, you know, highly articulate in their understanding and their wish to really incorporate the Dharma into their everyday lives, which is again a very interesting recent phenomena that educated Indians, and especially the women, have suddenly really stepped out and shown a genuine interest and connection with the Buddha Dharma at this time, which previously had not been so. But now, you know, in Tushita, I'm sure, many Indians come now compared with before.
Yes. It's very wonderful to see. Yeah. It's such a change, no? Yeah, just the last maybe 10 years. Yeah, it's very intriguing. Yeah, it's wonderful. So that is one of the good news of, or good effects of social media, that, you know, things like that spread, you know, more widely, and people getting interested, genuinely interested in young Indians. Yeah, very young Indians. Wonderful. Yeah,
It is wonderful.
yeah.
After all, Buddha was an Indian.
Yes,
They're only getting interested in their own.
very true. After so many decades, isn't it? Yeah, it's very, very wonderful. Jetsunma, thank you so much for being an inspiration and trailblazer, especially for us women, for so many decades. It's always so heartwarming talking to you, and I see so many, yes, we got so many, I couldn't read, comments and thank yous, and people are so happy and inspired again and again, sending their hearts. Thank you so much, Jetsunma. And this morning I was thinking of Jetsunma because Jetsunma used to come here always in March when the clivia, Jetsunma knows clivias, they always bloom like very early. Yeah. And I always, when I see the clivias blooming, I always think of Jetsunma, because that's always the time when you came to Tushita, and today is just perfect timing. Thank you so much. Please, Jetsunma, have a long and healthy life. Teach us, yes, until samsara ends, because it might take a while, even with AI. And please, be always our good friend here at Tushita, and thank you so much for your support. It's always so much appreciated and
My dear,
heartwarming.
thank you so much. Lovely to see your smiling face.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you are doing. You know, really, Tushita has done so much to bring people to the Dharma. As you know, you're the one place where in India where people can go and have like a 10-day course and immersion in the Dharma. And really, that's nowhere else that I know of. You might learn this or you might learn that, but to get the whole, you know, basic Lama path given to you in 10 days like that by such qualified teachers is an amazing thing, which you've been doing, all of you, now for so many years. And it's brought so many people to the Dharma. What was the first thing they ever did? They did a course in Tushita. So well done.
Thank you so much, Jetsunma. The team is sitting here and they're all very touched. Thank you.
You're a great team. Thank you.
Come teach. Here they are. I know Felipe is your team.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is Joelle. Joelle is our new team member from Spain.
Okay.
Lovely.
Say something.
Qué bueno ver españoles ahí.
Gracias, Felipe.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Have a good afternoon, Jetsunma, and see you very soon. Please. Thank you so much, everybody, for for joining us in this wonderful session today. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening. And the next session is tomorrow. We have Venerable Thupten Chodronla again, who we had already as our guest on Sunday. And she will, I think, continue on the King of Prayers. It was a very interesting and very joyful session because Shravasti Abbey was just coming out of retreat. It was their last day of retreat, 3 months retreat. And everybody was in a very special mood. And she was just making everybody laugh for 1.5 hours. So if you wanted to see these sessions, please look in the recording list. And then otherwise, join us tomorrow again at 9 o'clock because the Venerable Thupten Chodronla is in the west coast of the US. So 9 o'clock is just the getting up time. Yeah. Thank you so much and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.